Hi, it's Pastor Penny. Um, Today I'm going to talk about the Presbyterian Handbook for Pastors. There's also one called the Presbyterian Handbook, just not necessarily for pastors. Um, it's a it's a fun book. You can see there's Calvin, John Calvin with sunglasses. So that's it kind of gives you an idea. Um, there's a lot of good and legitimate information in here, but there's also a lot that is tongue in cheek. And some of the headings are call stuff, administrative stuff, pastoral stuff, worship stuff, personal stuff, um, just to give you an idea. So I just found just a few different subjects that I thought were interesting. So this is four unlikely leaders in the Bible and what you can learn from them. So the first one is Paul. Paul's pretty well known, right? He um, he started churches after Jesus, after the resurrection. Paul went out and started churches. He wrote letters that are in the New Testament, and he was eventually imprisoned for his beliefs. And the Lord called him. He used to be Saul and was not a nice person, and then he was converted. He was the last person any human would have imagined as a leader of the church, but he is the one God chose. Um, so, the basic qualification, as we learn from Paul's story, is a person needs to be a Christian. In order to be a Christian leader, you need to be forgiven. And then David, remember the story of David? Um, he uh, he had an affair with Bathsheba, and they murdered Bathsheba's husband. Um, and we learn from that. There's more to the story, but we learn that leaders remain sinners even after they are called, and they always need forgiveness. And so those are just a few stories of unlikely leaders. 9 things about parish ministry they didn't teach you in seminary. There's a lot they didn't teach me in seminary. So God was present and at work in the congregation before you arrived. Um, I certainly know that, but uh, I think everyone needs to remember that. Congregation doesn't care how things were done in your last call. The congregation needs a pastor more than it needs another member. And sometimes a congregation needs a cheerleader more than a prophet, a preacher, or a priest. Um, so they just need support and letting them know they're doing a great job. Your job is not to create the perfect Presbyterian congregation. Such a congregation does not exist. You do not have to be the most knowledgeable person in every area of the congregation's ministry, tempting though this may be. And grace applies to pastors too. Uh, and then 7 preachers in the Bible and what made them great. And Paul is again the first one mentioned, greatest preacher to the Gentiles. Everything he did and said was in light of the cross. Moses was not an eloquent speaker. Maybe you remember him saying to God, I can't go out and lead and speak. But his brother Aaron, God sent Aaron to speak on his behalf. But he's remembered as the lawgiver because God gave the law, remember the 10 Commandments, through him. Um, so those are a couple of leaders. Mary Magdalene, the apostle to the apostles, was the first to whom Jesus appeared after his resurrection. Remember that? That's the Easter story, or that's the Easter morning story that Mary Magdalene meets him after he seeing the empty tomb. John, the evangelist who wrote the Gospel of John, and people are not sure that if he really was the author, but he was a master of symbolism. Jokes to use for church crowds. How to handle a cell phone during worship. Equip ushers with squirt guns. Sing along with the ringtone. Stop suddenly in mid-sentence and give the offender the most withering look you can summon. And if all else fails, simply allow the moment to pass without pause and assume that the person is fallible and sorry and will not let it happen again. How to get out of a traffic ticket is the last thing. And some officers think it's their duty to punish clergy. If one of these is at your car window, pray fervently. Wear your collar. Be penitent. Always wear your clerical collar while driving. That is rule number 1. And last, couple of signs. Jokes for use with church crowds. On a septic tank truck, yesterday's meals on wheels. On a plumber's truck, don't sleep with a drip, call your plumber. On a plastic surgeon's office door, hello, can we pick your nose? That's on an electrician. No, in a non-smoking area, if we see smoke, we will assume you are on fire and will take appropriate action. On a fence, solicitors welcome, dog food is expensive. In a veterinarian's waiting room, be back in 5 minutes, sit, stay. Now, I wouldn't agree that all of those are appropriate, but they are worth a chuckle. So, blessings.